All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Facebook Live today. We're going to talk about some of my favorite free games today. So these are totally free. You can do them with stuff that you have in your house. These are math games. We're going to do some from really, really young kids to adults that you can play uh, during this crazy time. So let me just mention during this crazy time that I hope everybody's doing okay. All the best. I give you all my best wishes that you're safe and that you're healthy. Take care of yourself. Highly recommend that you take some downtime for yourself, that you breathe every day. See if you can get a walk in outside. Get up, take a shower, do some things to get yourself ready for the day. And then interact with people as much as you can in cases like this, in situations where that's why we're doing some Facebook Lives to try to help people to have some connection, and then also to be able to do some math games with your kids at home. Give me just a second to tell the Twitter world that we are on live. Just a minute. And then we will talk about some free math games that you can play at home with things that you have at home readily available. We'll also give you some printouts if you want at the end of the Facebook Live. We'll give you a link that you can click on to get game sheets and printouts of rules and some adaptations that you could do for students of different ages. So cool. Some of my very favorite math games ever. Let's talk about today. I'm going to start really young. So if you have older students, hang in. We're going to get to older students for sure. We're going to start really young with one of my favorite games we're going to call Collect 10. I think I first saw something like this in Investigations. You could totally use cards like I have. These are pre-made cards that we purchased from Bridges in Mathematics, which we like. But you could totally use face cards. Just use the number cards. Take the, I guess face is that what they're called, face cards? A regular card deck to pull the face cards out and just use the number cards. So the very first game called Collect 10, and we will list these, and we'll also have a download where you can download all the rules and game sheets and stuff. So the very first game, Collect 10, lay out a bunch of cards. And I think the rules actually say like a 4x4 of cards. I only had room on my clipboard here for a 3x3 of cards, so you can put more, you can put less. Maybe don't put less, but put in enough cards. This is the hardest thing for me to do, is to have these straight. Okay, there we go. So lay out the cards, and then for the very youngest students, very young. Hey, Annalise, welcome. Hi, Sue. So for the very youngest students, just lay them out like this, and then you're going to kind of play just a matching game. So you're going to ask kids to find the same cards. So do we have any cards on here that match? We don't have any cards on here that match. So then we might have to add more cards. And so we could add more cards. And as I add more cards, then you might expect a student to go, oh, oh, wait, we did have a match. Oops. Do we have a match? So we could take these two cards. We have a match, 2 6s, and take those 2 cards and put them in our hand. And now we have the 2 6s in our hand as I taped them on here. I can do this. So the 2 6s are now in my hand, and then I would refill and I would put new cards on here, and then we would just straight out be looking for matches. So that's for young kids, just to get them sort of looking at matching the numerals, getting used to numerals. As you match them, then you, the parent, would say things like, oh, so you found 2 6s. This is the number 6. You might even take their, come on, focus, camera, focus. You might even take their finger and it's not focusing. I love my camera because it's really good, but then it changes focus when I move things and when I don't have, come on. Okay, there we go. Now we're in focus. So you might take their finger and trace the numeral so they get sort of used to how they might draw that numeral as you say that it is the number. It represents the number 6. Again, just matching. Now, the real game, Collect 10, is called Collect 10, not just collect matches, because you're actually looking for partners of 10. And when little tiny kids first start to play it, they'll do things like grab any random card, and they'll say, okay, so for this any random card, 8, and they might even count 8, and then they'll go, okay, so then I need 9, 10, or they might count 8, and they might go 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's too many. Oh, that's not a partner. You want to get to the point where they start to know their partners of 10, but you can let them just count until they sort of find one that fits. You might actually suggest ones if they're really tiny. If they're too tiny to even really count to see if they're partners of 10, it's probably not the best game for them. But then you might have kids who just recognize partners of 10, and or they don't have to do a little work to check to make sure they have a partner of 10. And so in this case, we could take that 6 and the 4, and I could say, okay, I'm going to grab those guys. Those are now in my deck. We would fill in with new cards, and then it would be the next student's turn, the next kid's turn. They collect partners of 10. So do we have another partner of 10 on here? Could I should let you look. Could somebody choose the 8 and the 2, and they could put that in their deck, and then we keep playing. We keep filling in as we go until the cards are all gone. And then if you really want to play a competition game, you could count the number of cards, and whoever has the most cards win. For a little bit of a challenge of a game, one thing you could do is you could add in the wild cards in the deck. So you could use aces if you're using a normal set of cards at home, or if you download our game sheets at the end of the Facebook Live, you'll have a chance to download just some masters that you could run off of if you have a printer at home, or you could actually just make them by hand, cards if you had blank paper at home. And the wild cards can help add a lot of generality to the game, a lot of abstraction, where kids have to really think about, ooh, if there's a wild card in there, what would that mean? What could I choose for wild card? And that's kind of a fun thing. That might seem like it makes the game easier, which in a way it does. Excuse me, because if I understand partners of 10, then I can choose any card on here and say, well, for that 9, I'm going to make that a 1. For that 8, I'm going to make that a 2. For that 5, I'm going to make that a 5. And then it sort of makes the game easier because I can instantly get a partner. But it actually makes it harder for young learners because they really have to think about what the partner is. Goodness heavens, I'm going to take a drink. One moment. Because they have to think about what the partner is. They can't just test it out to see if it works. So that's one way. Another way, maybe even a better way, to sort of do a more advanced version of Collect 10, we call Turnover 10. So instead of doing where you just lay the cards all out on the tabletop, this time lay the cards all out, but more. Hang on just a second. Let me get my visual aids all there. You could lay the cards out upside down. Now you have more of a concentration version of Turnover 10. You have a version where we Collect 10 that we call Turnover 10. Come on, focus, camera. Focus, camera. Focus. Come on. Yeah, I know. I'm going to get a new camera or something at some point. Hey, from Wisconsin, Kim. Hey, Beth. They could also pick 3 cards. Absolutely. Beth just mentioned that part of the rules is that you could actually choose 3 cards. So let's say that I chose the 5 and the 2, and I'm not quite to 10, that I could look to see if I had a 3, that I could finish that out, or I could even choose, in this particular set, I don't have any more, but you could choose more than one pair of cards. And then as an extension, you could limit it to just pairs. Because eventually the goal is that we actually are looking for partners of 10, not just, I'm trying to get those to focus, not just any numbers that sum to 10, though that's important. And that's a beginning place to start, but eventually we want to get to partners of 10. So if an extension could be that I turn the cards over and now we play a concentration version. So the first time I do it, I'm going to be surprised and be like, I don't even know what that number is. Oh, that's a 9. So what am I looking for? Now I'm looking for a 1. I don't want to play this concentration version until kids kind of own their partners of 10. They have some sort of feel for partners of 10, or at least they're getting there. So then I would turn over 9. And I don't have tape on the back side of this. So then I would turn over another one and I would say, oh, is that, nope. And then I would put them back over, and then it would be the next person's turn. So a concentration version of Collect 10 is Turnover 10, where again, I'm looking for sort of partners of 10, but this time it's the concentration version. Again, another accommodation that you could use, an extension that you could do, is to add wild cards back in. And so now when the student turns over a wild card, then they have to tell you what the wild card stands for in order to make that particular partner of 10. Okay, we call those 10 games. If you download our free Game Masters, you'll get a little explanation of all of the ways to play those Make 10 games. Those are great for kids in pre-K all the way up to 2nd grade, really all the way up to kids who don't yet know their partners of 10. So you're going to want to focus on anybody who doesn't know their partners of 10. These would be good games to play with them to help out. The last part partner of 10 game that we want to play. The last 10 game that we want to play is called 10's Go Fish. So if you've played Go Fish before, then you're familiar with this game. You're familiar with the rules for Go Fish. For Go Fish, you typically would deal out 7 cards. So here's a deck of, or a hand of 7. Let me put that back in there because it's not staying. So let's say that this is your hand of 7 cards. And the very first game is similar to the one we just played, where we're going to play for matches. So if you're playing with young kids, you could say, okay, pull out your matches. And so in this deck, a student would pull out the 2 1s, and they would say, okay, there's my match, and they would set them aside. And then when it was time to play, if this is our deck, I would have pulled out the 1s, and I can do it real quick. But then I might say, ooh, I have a 4. So I'm going to say that in my head. So out loud to my partner, I might say, do you have a 4? Because again, that first sort of game we're playing is matches. Now play that until kids have numeral recognition, and you start to work on partners of 10. Then we call it 10's Go Fish. 10's Go Fish because we're looking for partners of 10. So if this is our hand, then we're looking for partners of 10. So before we even start playing the game, again, we're going to pull out our matches, but this time our matches are partners of 10. So what's our match for partner of 10 here? We could pull out this 4 and that's 6, right? Because 4 and 6, that makes 10. And so I'll take that 4 and that 6. I can get it off. I think I can. And I would set those aside as in my deck. And so now or not my deck, but in my sort of scorecards that I'm going to keep. And then now these are the cards that I have left. Now, when I look at my partner and I'm looking to get a card from the person that I'm playing with, then I'm going to choose one of these cards. Say, maybe we'll choose one of the 1s. Instead of saying, do you have a 1 this time? Now we're playing partners of 10. Now we say, do you have a 9? If the other player has a 9, then the player gives us the 9. We take the 1 and the 9 and we set it aside in our score pile. If they don't have a 9, then they say, Go Fish. And we pull a card out of the Go Fish pile, we add it to our deck, and then we continue to play 10's Go Fish, where we are looking for partners of 10. And we keep playing until the cards are gone, and then if you want to play competitively, then you can count up the number of pairs that you had to see who wins. So 10's Go Fish, even I think a parent could play with some sort of fun because you're looking, it's as fun as any Go Fish game. There you go. That's as fun as it can be. So those are our building partners of 10 games. If you have any kids that don't know their partners of 10, kids need to know their partners of 10. In fact, real quick, I'll just talk a little bit. One of the things that we're about to put up on my website, and when we say about, that means really like 6 months out, but we have decided that it would be a thing to tell people what mathy people do in their heads that nobody ever sort of told us about. If you know my story, you know that when I was a young learner, I actually just memorized all of math. I call that fake math. I just memorized a disconnected set of facts and I memorized them and rules and procedures and I mimicked them. But instead, now I've been talking to mathematicians for the past 20 years. Now I know what you guys are doing in your heads. Guess what? That we could all do in our heads. We just need to know it's a thing. Relationships that we can own. One of them that's really important, partners of 10. Mathematicians know those. They own those partners of 10. So we want your students, your kids to know those as well. So play our 10s game. Okay, another set of games that we're going to offer to you if you download from the website is a bunch of games that we call Close To. So this is a score sheet for close to 20. You'll also get the score sheet for close to 100 and a score sheet for close to 1,000, which you can also jury rig to play a couple of other Close To games. So what are the Close To games? Let's get a deck of cards that we could play with. When we were to play, say, close to 20, if we were to play close to 20, then I would choose 5 cards. From those 5 cards, again, you'll get that score sheet, but I went ahead and recreated it on my whiteboard right here. So you would get, yeah, it really doesn't like whiteboards. I think it's the white that it doesn't like to focus on. Okay, I can do this. I can get it in there. There we go. So on the close to 20 sheet that I just blew up a little bit, you're looking to take those 5 cards that we just drew, 5 cards we just drew, and you're going to choose 3 of them. Or if I'm in sign language, you're going to choose 3 of them. So you're going to choose 3 of those cards, and you're going to put the first card and the second card and the third card, you're going to add them together. And when you add those 3 cards together, you are looking to get a sum. That's the name of what we call when you've added those 3 digits together. You're looking to get a sum that's as close to 20 as possible. And so your score is going to be how close to 20 did you get? Well, if these are our cards, so again, we're going to choose 3 cards out of the 5. So here's a little strategy involved, mathematical strategy. We choose 3 cards out of the 5. Which 3 cards would we choose to get as close to 20 as possible. I'm actually going to pause for a second, let everybody think. Don't look in the comments until you're ready. Go ahead and throw in the comments which 3 numbers you would choose that sum as close, that add to as close to 20 as you can get. Go ahead and do that. And if you want, also in the chat, in the messages, you could put what you think your score would be if you choose those 3 numbers. So I'll go ahead and let everybody do that a little bit. Hey, Mary, welcome. Hey, Steve, glad to have you back again. Focus Leviosa. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I can do that. Very good. I'm just looking at some of the comments. What you guys are choosing? Hey, Kathy's back. Hi, Jana from Oklahoma. All right. You guys, it just happened to be a little bit, I don't know if you guys have ever done, hey, Mandy, if you guys have ever done Facebook Live, you're a little behind. There's a bit of a delay. So I'm looking to see sort of what people are putting in the chat. We'll give everybody another minute or so. Look at a couple more answers. And I am seeing people choose 8, 5, and 6. So let's see if I were to put 8, 5, and 6, and it doesn't matter the order, right? Because of the commutative property. So if I were to put 8, 5, and 6 in my score sheet, 8, 5, and 6, what is 8 plus 5 plus 6? Now, with kids, I want to have a conversation. How are you adding those together? Did you do them in that order? Did you add the 5 and the 6 first to get 11 and then add the 8? That's what I did. And then we're going to write down that sum of 19. That was really neat on my part. Oh my goodness. Okay, let me try that again. It was not neat on my part. So now we have a sum of 19. And so then our score, how close to 20 are we? We're only 1 away, right? So the score that we would have is just 1. Then you get to have a great conversation with kids. Do you think you want to have a high score or do you think you want to have a low score? And then you let students decide, you let kids decide and have a conversation about it. And then on the score sheet, you'll have another row. So we could have, so we can play again. Now, the next time that you play, remember we just chose 3 of those cards. We can take that 8 and that 5 and that 6, discard them, and choose 3 new cards. So we can come back to our pile over here, our cards that we just used, take out the 8, 5, and 6, add 3 new cards, choose 3 new cards, choose the 3 that get as close to 20 as possible, figure out our score, and then on the score sheet, there's actually room for 5 of those rounds. And 5 of those rounds is a game. And then again, you get to have a conversation with kids about how, what kind of score do you want? Do you want a low score? Do you want a high score? And why? And it's great mathematics conversation. So a couple things that you want to chat with kids while you're playing. You want to talk to them about how they added the numbers together. You also want to talk about how they figured out how close to 20 they are. If their sum is close to 20, it's not too bad. It's not too hard to figure out what their score is. If their sum is far from 20, that is much harder for students. And so you want to talk about what you're thinking about, what they're thinking about, and kind of allow kids to sort of play with those numbers and sort of share what strategies you're thinking about. How can we adapt that? How can we challenge kids? So one way to challenge that, kids, add in those wild cards. So as you choose your deck or your set of 5 cards to choose from, if there's a wild card, oh, that like raises the level of rigor. For sure, it makes it much more abstract. And now kids have to think about what could that wild card be. It kind of makes the game easier in a way, again, like we talked about before, because now if I use that wild card, I can sort of use it for whatever I want. But because I can use it for whatever I want, it makes it much more difficult for kids who are really thinking concretely, and it makes it more abstract, which is a great way to sort of differentiate. So if you have older and younger kids playing together, you might want to have the older kids have wild cards in their deck and the younger kids not. Or they could both have wild cards, and it will just be a little bit harder for the younger kids. Or the less developed kids might be a way to say that. Okay, so then how do you play close to 100 or close to 1,000? Well, the record sheets are very similar, except for on close to 20. So this is the record sheet for close to 20. Notice how it's that digit plus digit plus digit, and you sum it, and then you get the score, and you play 5 rounds, and that's a game. And then on the score sheet, you have 5 rounds. You can either have the player play on the top and the person they're playing against play on the bottom, or you can make score sheets for both of them and they can play 2 games per score sheet. Close to 100 is very similar, except you're going to choose 6 cards or deal out 6 cards and then choose 4 of them to get 2 2-digit numbers whose sum is as close to 100. Excuse me, 100. So now you're trying to get 2 2-digit numbers to score as close to 100 as possible, and then your score is as close to 100 as you got. Because guess what? Not only are partners of 10 really important, that mathematicians own partners of 10, partners of 100 are really important. In other words, if I were to wake you from a dead sleep and I were to say 64, I would expect one of the things that you would say, if I wake you from a dead sleep, is 36. It's partner to 100. So we're looking for kids to sort of develop partners of 100 by playing as close to 100 as you can get. And then the last close to game, or not even the last, but another close to game is close to 1,000. Close to 1,000, you choose 8 cards. You deal out 8 cards. Then you choose 6 cards whose sum is as close to 1,000 as possible. Whoa! Now you're going to have 2 3-digit numbers that you're going to sum as close to 1,000 as possible. And then your score is how close to 1,000 you got. With all of these close to games, you want to be talking out loud, talking about your strategies, what's going on in your head. And then to up the ante, you can either go from close to 20, we would expect kids in 2nd grade to start being able to play. If they really struggle with finding how close to 20 they are, then don't stress too much about that. Close to 100, we could start in grade 3, we would expect. Close to 1,000, we could expect that we could start in grade 4. And all the way along, we can be making those, you can differentiate for your kids and your students with using wildcards. And then also, you could take any of these score sheets and just change them a little bit to play close to 1. So close to 1, you can use the close to 100 score sheet, and just right in the blanks, just right before the blanks, right here, just put a point. And then in that, not right before this blank, put a point, and then right before this blank, put a point. And now you're adding 2 decimal numbers whose sum is as close to 1 as possible. So if I get, I'm still putting for heaven's sakes, focus. Why won't you focus? Come on, camera. Come on, camera. There we go. So now you're getting 2 decimal numbers whose sum is as close to 1 as possible. We would expect you could start playing that in 4th grade, but for sure 5th grade and up. Middle school teachers, if your students don't know their partners of 100, you could totally play close to 100 and then work up to close to 1,000 and close to 1. And then on as high grades as you can, because we really want all students to know their partners of 10 and partners of 100. So a couple games that we've talked about so far, the partners of 10 games, and then we just did the close to games, 2 of my favorite families of games. The last game that we're going to play today is for older students, and now we're talking about students who are messing around with multiplication facts. One of the things that people ask me for the most is how to help their students learn their multiplication facts. And so this is one of our favorite games to play, and we call it the factor game, or excuse me, the product game. I've heard it called all sorts of different things. We call it the product game, and you can call it whatever you want. It looks something like this. And again, if you're just joining us, you can totally download these game sheets. We'll give you the link at the end of the Facebook Live, and you can download the game sheets, and then you can play these at home. Let's say you don't have a printer. I know a lot of people don't have a printer anymore. You could totally just copy this on notebook paper or any kind of paper that you have hanging around, or whiteboard that you have, or a chalkboard you have hanging around, because you have whiteboards hanging around your house. If you're my daughter, you do, because she totally has her whole schedule written up on a whiteboard on her room wall. Anyway, so how do you play the product game? So this is what the game sheet looks like for the product game. Okay, so you'll notice that I have 2 paper clips for the product game. I'm going to choose to be blue because blue is my favorite color. And let's say that I'm going to make you guys go first. And so I'm going to sort of go for you. And the first player is going to choose one of these factors over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose for you, and I'm going to choose the factor 5. And so I will put your paper clip on the number 5, the factor 5. Now it's my turn. So the first player chooses a factor, puts the paper clip on the factor. Second player says, if I have to use the factor 5, what other factor do I want to put my paperclip on so that then the product of those 2 factors, I get to X out? We're going to play tic-tac-toe on this board over here. So if I'm going to X out, what would I X out? Well, maybe I'm going to go sort of for the middle of the boardish, and I want that 30. So let's see, what would my other factor be? Sure enough, I would choose 6. So then I will take my paperclip, and I will put my paperclip on 6. And then I will X out, because I'm blue, I will X out 30. So now the game board looks like this. What do you think? Okay, so now what do? We've got the first, you guys went first. Come on, focus. You guys went first, and then I put the marker on 5, and then I went next and put the marker on 6, and so then I was able to X out 30. What factor do you want to X out next? Because you can only move one paperclip. You can only move one paperclip. So if you were going to move one paperclip and you want to decide where you're going to put your O, where might you do that? I'm going to let you guys take a minute. I'm going to hold this up here. Hopefully it will focus any minute now. Come on, focus. Where would you put your red paperclip? Because you want to put an O somewhere, and the goal is to get 4 in a row. So I'm going to go ahead and watch the chat window. If you guys want to go ahead and put in the comments what factor you would choose. You can move either paperclip, and you're going to choose one place to put either paperclip, but you can only move one. You can only move one paperclip so that you could get oh no. Okay, sorry. I hit a button and I was gone for a second, but I don't think it stopped. So I think we're still good to go. Okay, cool. So I'm not seeing anybody throw in any, and maybe I'm just behind. I'm not quite sure what's happening. So I'm not seeing anybody put in their suggestions. So maybe I'll just go for you. Well, I'll wait another second, see if we can get anybody putting in any kind of, hey, Gillis, thanks for joining. Hi, Jassy, thanks for joining in. Let's see, Kathy and Beth. Still looking for anybody throwing out. There we go. Denise just said, move the 5 to the 7. All right, so if we move the 5, the paperclip over here that is on the 5, and we move that to the 7, let's do that really fast. If we move the 5 to the 7, what would that mean that Denise and y'all as red would get to mark out? We move that 5 to the 7. So now we have paperclips on the 6 and the 7. So now the student has to decide what is 6 times 7. 6 times 7 is 42. So we'll find that 42 and we'll put an O on the 42. And this is our game board. And so now it's my turn. Now I get to decide where do I want to move my paperclip, or either paperclip. Remember, you can only move one. Where do I want to move it? And then I get to put an X. And the goal is to get 4 in a row. Y'all, there is strategy in this. So if I have a young learner who's learning their multiplication facts, they're going to focus on getting the multiplication facts. You might actually find that they do the top row. They might do ones that they might do some doubles that they know. They're not really thinking strategy. When I play this game, I'm thinking 2 or 3 or 4 moves ahead, because I might think to myself, all right, should I put no, if I put it there, then that will allow them to put their marker somewhere that could then let them get a number that I don't want them to get. So there's totally like layers of strategy. This is a fun game for me to play because there's strategy involved with me thinking about where I could move my marker next. Totally while I'm solving lots of multiplication problems. In fact, I'm solving not just every multiplication problem that ends up with an X or an O on this board, but because I start to say to myself, let's see, since I'm blue and I might want to put my marker on 20, can I? And then I look over here and I go, can I move either of these so that I could get 20? In this case, I can't, right? I can't move from the 7 because then I'll end up with 6 times something to be 20. Or I can't move the 6 because then I'll end up with 7 times something, and that doesn't get me to 20. Okay, I can't get that. Well, maybe I want to try to get 4 in a row. Well, no, that's not 4 in a row, so I don't want 21. Well, maybe I'm going to block the red. Maybe I want to try to get this 28. Let's see, could I move something? Oh, can I move something over there to get to the 28? Notice how just to decide that move, I just did a ton of multiplication. And maybe even some division to think about where I might put that next marker to get my next move. And then especially if I'm thinking 2 or 3 moves down the road, I'm doing lots of multiplication facts. We love the product game. Okay, y'all, we talked about 3 sets of games today. 1 are the partners of 10 games. 1 are the close to games. And then this last one we call the product game. These are some of our favorite games that we've seen out there. We've sort of created our own version for them. If you are interested, we have pinned the link at this Facebook Live. So you can just click on that. You can download these free game sheets. You can use just normal playing cards that you have at home, or also if you click on that link, you can get just some sample, not sample, but some we made a set of digit cards that you can download and then you can print if you have a printer at home. If you don't, you can totally just make your own cards. If you have 10-sided dice, for anybody plays D&D in your house, can you tell we have role players in our house? We have lots of sided dice in our house. You could also play with the 10-sided dice. You want to be thinking about whether you have zeros or tens in the deck. If you are playing any of the games that we talked about today that require cards, you can use zeros. But if you play the Partners of 10 games and you have a 0, you also need to have a 10 in the deck. When you play the close to games, if you're playing close to 20, you can have a 10 in the deck and a 0. If you are playing any of the other close to games on those score sheets, these lines, you're not going to put, that's close to 20. So you can have 0s and 10s. Where did my close to 100 go? Oh, you should see my desk. If you're playing close to 100, then now when you put the cards in these slots, they don't stand for numbers anymore. For how do I say that? They stand for the digits in a 2-digit number. So like if you have a 5 and a 4 and you put the 5 here and you put the 4 there, then the 5 stands for 50 and the 4 stands for 4. And so you don't want to have a 10 in the deck anymore because you don't want to be able to put a 10 in this slot or that slot. So when you're playing close to 100 or close to 1,000 or close to 1, then you don't want to have a 10 in the deck, but you do want to have zeros in the deck. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and look at, oh, Kathy, I agree. The product game is totally one of our favorites. Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the comments that people are leaving and see if anybody's asking any questions. And then we will be done with this short little, it was a little longer than I anticipated, but I wanted to just give parents at home and teachers, and I think I might have some kids on, some ideas of games that you could play that are totally going to build things that mathy people have in their heads, because we can all be mathy. Absolutely. And so what are some things that we want you to have in your heads? Relationships. We want you to own partners of 10. We want you to own partners of 100. We want you to own partners of 1,000 when you get up there. And we also want you to own your multiplication facts. We want you to own them. We want you to mess with them a lot, thinking and reasoning about how you find them. While I'm waiting for any questions that are coming in the chat, I'll just mention to you that when you're playing the factor, the product game, you want to be talking about if you didn't know a product. Let's say you had, I don't know, 6 times 8, and you're like, I didn't actually know 6 times 8, but I know 5 8s, and so I just added one more 8. You want to be talking to your kids as you play with them about how you found multiplication facts if you refigured them as you were doing that. Carrie, you're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Jana, thanks for joining in. I won't hang around too much longer in case anybody has questions. I will tell you, do you recommend expression games? I don't know what those are, Steve. Send me an email with some detail about those expression games, because that's a great lead into, we will do some more Facebook Lives next week. Join our teacher Facebook group or our parent Facebook group and tell me, what are you mostly interested in? We have more games that we could share, but I'm also really interested to do some problem strings. I think I want to do some problem strings live to develop relationships and connections, to develop strategy. And y'all, you could have your personal kids join with you. Probably not your classes of kids. Facebook, you have to be 13 or over. So I guess we could have 13 or over kids join in if they want to. But we will post the videos on YouTube, and then kids could check out those videos on YouTube. So I would really be interested in getting your feedback in the two Facebook groups, the parent Facebook group and the teacher Facebook group. What would you like to see more of in the Facebook Lives that we do next week? This will be the last one for this week, but we'll do some more next week. So if you like this page, then you'll be notified on your feed when they come up. If you join the groups, then you'll definitely have more notice about which things we're going to do when next week. So somebody just said strings. Yes. Okay. That totally works. Thanks, Mandy. And Lisa, glad you joined us, even though it was a little bit late. It's totally cool. Kim, really looking for stuff for middle and high schoolers. What do I do with that at home? Kim, we probably should do one of these next week, but I totally recommend a couple different ways you can run it. Desmos activities. Maybe we'll do a whole thing next week on Desmos activities, teacher activities. So you go to teacher.desmos.com, open up a teacher activity, set a class code, and then you let your students use those class codes in student.desmos.com. Some wonderful things that you can do where students can totally just go off on their own, or you can interact with them. Both of those for middle and high school. There are things for both middle and high school. I think you could totally play the product game that we played today. Next week, we might play the factor game, which is a little bit more of a higher level version where you are thinking more about factors than products. Anyway, so that's enough for today. Yeah, definitely Desmos. Again, let me hear from you in those teacher and parent Facebook groups, and take care of yourselves. Y'all stay safe. Really think about ways to reach out and make connections with people in these sort of isolating times. I highly recommend that you do something to get at least a video call with some people to really connect, make sure that you're connecting. I think as human beings, we really need connection. And so I want to really encourage you to do some things to connect with others. Thanks for joining in today. Take care, everybody.